This program is listed as a community dance program. And if you've been to one of these conventions in the past and not attended one of these, it's because they've never been held before. And I think we're going to have fun. The idea behind the program is pleasure and fun and friendliness, and we've got that kind of a speaking talent. Let me introduce him to you first. The man who worked so hard on the program since 1803, from Albuquerque, New Mexico, Ken Kernen. The man who speaks English and wears shoes, from Ohio, Bob Howell. The guy who knows about everything that's happened in American dance for the past 200 years, really an expert, Stu Shacklette from Kentucky. The guy who helped in the very beginning with CALLERLAB and has been a sturdy support of it, a past chairman of the board, a wonderful guy like the others, Bob Van Antwerp. The only other thing I'm going to do, what did you do with my glasses, Ken? Oh, these. I'd like to read you the resolution that we passed. Where'd everybody go? This is the resolution that brings this group together. Be it resolved that the Traditional Dance Committee of CALLERLAB will develop a program to be called Community Square Dancing, suitable for use in family, adult, and similar group recreation activities. This program will contain the fundamental elements of square dancing, which can be taught in 6 two-hour sessions or less, and provide the foundations for the lifetime community recreation of our present and future dancers. Passed by the CALLERLAB members, Baltimore, Maryland, March 26, 1986. And we're just going to turn it loose with the board, and I might just tip you off on this. We have 3 sessions, the one here, then right now, and then the one at 9 tomorrow morning in a different hall, but it'll be listed in your program. At 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, we're going to have some demonstrations. We're going to talk a little bit about the music, let you hear it. And then the last session, which is following refreshments tomorrow morning, we're going to have sort of a free-for-all, discuss it, questions and everything else, and about teaching, about a caller learning the arts attached to this particular type. So, Ken, why don't you tell them a little bit about this thing called CDP? Ken Kernen.
Thanks, Bob. We've been pretty close to this over the past year, and with a lot of your help, we've put together a program that is before you, and we hope you've had a chance to kind of take a look at it. And John very graciously was able to get it out to you before the convention. Those that did not come to the convention have not seen it yet, but you did get it in your packet, and so it's for your review, and then it will be distributed later, pending approval of the whole program. But we're pretty excited about this program, and we think this program really has potential. And it has really the potential to be the gateway to tapping that really huge population base that we have not reached, that George White has talked about in his presentation of Another View, and I hope you've all had a chance to see that today. He had 2 presentations and one's going on right now. And so we think there's a great potential out there. And Herb Eggener last night in his orientation session talked about getting fired up and going back home with his batteries charged up. And we'd like to fire you up about this program because we think it's got a great potential out there. And several callers have approached me here with the concern that because I am chairman of the Traditional Dance Committee, that all we're going to have is Birdie in the Cage stuff. And I would like to assure you that that's not so. And if you'll take a look at the material, I think you'll find a very well-rounded program that's going to be broad-based and with a lot of variety. And we'd like to kind of put the fun back in square dancing, and there's kind of that old tired phrase, not a tired phrase, most certainly, but, fun is spelled as F-U-N, and we want to put you back in the middle of this and get you involved and get you having the fun of it. So with that, I'd like to say that I want to talk a little bit about the list that we have generated, the material that we have, just a little bit, and then Stu Shacklette is going to expound upon that more. And obviously we have some holes in the program and that's the glossary, and we need help on that. And I want to talk a little bit, too, about the resources section. You won't find anything there, and I want a little bit later on discuss a little bit of that. We have a resolution to present then tomorrow morning before you, and we would like to have you attend and be part of that. And that will be presented then Wednesday morning. And by most certainly, we want to invite you to kind of take a look at some of the material. You may not be familiar with some of the formations and things that we're doing, and we'd like to show them to you. So obviously, a lot of work has gone into this CDP program, both in concept and material. And we're very encouraged by the positive comments that have come in by letter and phone call, and especially by you coming up and talking to us about the program here at the convention. And so far, not one negative comment has come out of it. We've had some very constructive criticism, but nobody has come up and said we think it's lousy, we think it's a poor program. So we're very encouraged by all of it. And it leads me to believe that our activity very desperately needs something like this, and that we should proceed. Remember, however, I would like to caution that this program is not designed for today's happy mainstream or plus dancer. We're designing it for those kind of people of all ages, entire families who have a limited time available. We're including families, we're including teenagers, we're including young marrieds, we're including senior citizens in this whole broad-based program. So there's no limitation to the number of people, the type of dancer we're trying to market. And a lot of people have 6 weeks to commit, but not 40 or not even 25 weeks. And so at this point, I'd like to talk a little bit about what went into this paper that you have before you. And we've had input from over 45 members, the 45-member Traditional Dance Committee, originally charged with developing this program. We've had inputs from the Contra Committee, from the Board of Governors, and from several record producers, and a great deal of help there. And we've gotten special supplemental material, and we have tremendous amount of it from Hugh Macy at Gren and Top, Jack Murthaugh with Square Dance Time, Bob Ruff, who now has Wagon Wheel, McGregor and Windsor Records, Bob Howell, of course, that incredible storehouse of material here. It's published material for more than 15 years in the American Square Dance magazine, and it has been a tremendous resource. From Blue Star and Easy Label with Johnny Wyckoff and Norm Merbach, from the Shaw Foundation, who has a wealth of great material, and from an ammunition column that I wrote for about 7 years and Sets in Order. So there's quite a bit of input has gone into this. And I'd like to also thank a lot of thanks to Mona and Len Cannell for their support and their material that they provided. And I guess really most especially to this great man kind of sitting here beside me, Bob Osgood. Without his help, encouragement, enthusiasm, this program flat would not have come about. So thanks a lot, Bob. I want to just talk a little bit briefly about the list and make a plea to you. The list you see before you is what the committee calls the core basics. And that's really everything you need for this 6 weeks program. And I'd like to make a special plea really to all of you, and that is to let's not get hung up on the lists and beat it to death. We have done this before at CALLERLAB, and if we do this again, we're going to spend all of our time on the list and miss the important fundamentals of this program. This list of core basics was developed from research done by the Cannells in comparing programs such as Bob Dawson's Fun for Everyone program. Some of you who may have been familiar with that, a very successful program in Florida for many years. And based upon Bob Ruff's program, Bob Howell's, Jerry Helt's, Jack Murthaugh's Diamond program, the Shaw program, Sets in Order, and many other programs included into that list. So we've had a couple not a lot of comments come in, but I would say that after we developed this basic list of core basics, we've had some comments come in and suggestions for several additions that we've considered and have made some reasons for not including some additional basics. And several of those are things like star through, dive through, square through, California twirl, and flutter wheel, asking why not onto this program. And but the majority really have said that they felt it was good and it was something that they could live with. And I guess I would like to comment just briefly that some of the things like star through and square through are positionally difficult movements, and with all that we've got within this program, we think that it's above and beyond the scope of the 6 weeks. And I would like to, I guess, also say, remember this is a 6 weeks program, not an 8-week program, not a 10-week program, but 6. And briefly, you've got the first week is introductory, The second week, you're going to have a lot of new people that are coming back in, that have never been there before, and newcomers for the first time, most likely. And the sixth week is going to be primarily review and party. So within that framework, you've got a limited amount of time to be able to teach that material. So what I'd like to do, I think, is come back a little bit later and talk about some of the material that you see. And but I'd like to kind of kick it back to Bob right now, and we'll come back later and talk a little bit about resources and some of the material.
Thank you, Ken. Very nice. Thank you, Ken. From all the things I've read, there's nobody that has a greater collection of fun in dance. If anybody spelled his name with fun, it would be our next speaker. And many of you have read his stuff in Stan and Kathy's magazine, but now you get to hear it in person. Bob Howell.
Thank you, Bob. Start with a frog. Simplification. I'd like to just speak to you for just a few minutes upon this. Simplification. What can you do with half a dozen very, very simple basics? Maybe even get to 24 of them, as the list that you have before you indicates. May take you, may take you half a dozen nights to do it. Not that it is, well, I'm hoping that you could succeed that far. I have fostered the program this coming spring in a community adult recreation program and have 40 people signed up to experiment with it. So I'll be able to speak a little more about it at a little bit later date. Basic rhythm, I think, is what I seek constantly in this type of thing. And by the way, yes, I'm going to digress once in a while, but I don't really want to talk about a one-night stand program. I'm talking about something a little broader than that, because as I have become attuned in the last 15 years or 17 years of submitting material to the magazine for the Easy Level page, I try to be cognizant always of the fact that of two words that I rather live by in this is quick teach, something that can be taught rather quickly. You don't spend a great deal of time laboriously trying to get somebody to move through something that is rather difficult, but simply a quick teach, something they can grasp rather quickly, get immediate success, and then continue and just dance with it so that there's no elongation. Ken made the comment, too, that this is not, and I want to reiterate that, too, that this is not a program to foster anything. It's a program within itself. It doesn't, if incidentally it does lead somebody to get excited about it and wants to go further, for goodness sakes, I'm certainly not going to stop them or advocate that they stay where they are. However, this is a program that I see, excuse me, I'm very seldom speechless. This one's got me. No, I don't have water. Hell, I've had water. I don't want any more of that. Last time I was here, I drank some of it. I took some back as a specimen. I got sent it into the state, and they sent me back a letter, and they said, "Dear sir, we're sorry to inform you, but your horse has diabetes." Is this on tape? Oh, my God. Well, I'm in trouble. Wait till my wife hears that. That's horrible. Let me just mention a few things that I think we should be cognizant of. And you, in your interest, by being here this afternoon, might think a little bit about, too. This is not in good English. What age group are you working with? With what age group are you working? I see this as an excellent opportunity for family type of dance and family recreation. What perimeters am I working within, such as sexual structure? If I happen to get 20 ladies and 10 men in a program of this sort, am I going to be able to dance them? Can I keep the thing going? Can I think up enough triples or dances that are in this program? And they are, because if you look through the glossary, there are many that, well, just dance number ones, number twos, or any way you like to put them. Many times, I think particularly that, pair one, pair two, pair three, pair four, and there's no sexual connotation to it. And I'm not going to try to fool anybody. Our current ideas of square dancing are, it is a couple's activity, no matter which way you look at it. It has been and will continue to be a couple's activity. This one can violate that premise and doesn't necessarily have to be. Family-oriented, kids, well, there again, I think is where you draw your perimeters. If you can handle them, if nobody objects to them, I think they should be there. If someone, as one fellow out in Colorado said one time, I don't like having a kid's nose sticking in my navel all afternoon. And I thought, well, that said something to me very clearly, very abruptly. I think it should be recreationally oriented, of course, and I think basically is to get their minds off the fact that, that they maybe are dancing, because most men are dragged to a square dance. However, they'll outdance a woman 10 to 1 when you get them rolling. I think many of you have already found that. But to get rid of awkwardness, simplicity certainly will. To get them in and get them realizing that they are moving to the rhythmic pattern. And it's a great equalizer, too, I find. And you have, I'm sure, within your own confines of dance, that the owner of the bank can dance with a truck driver next door just as easily as can be, and vice versa, wives, etc., of various social orders. The caste system certainly goes out the window, particularly at a rate. I'm sure that the 4 things that you can start with are 4 things I always start with, and I will start this course this spring with 4 things. You got to know your left, you got to know your right, you got to know whether you're a boy or whether you're a girl. And even after we've learned that, why we can violate that a little bit. I used the word quick teach a moment ago, and I'd like to again say that if it can be done in very few words, succinctness is the climate. I can just real quickly get you into a situation and maybe not even use the acute word. Someone once said to me about a left man. I said, well, many times you don't have to use it at all. You can turn your left-hand person with a left hand round and then slip in the word corner, and pretty soon slip in the word left man. They're all doing the same thing and don't know the difference. If we can get them to become relaxed, that is the secret. They will return. If they're tight or anxious about it, and if it isn't simple enough to understand, they certainly won't come back. Dancing, is it an art or a science? And I'm simply going to ask that question, and I'm not even going to discuss it further. Is it an art or is it a science? We certainly have gotten scientific in some of the other stages of dance in which we've been involved. I'd like to think of this program as from the aspect of simplicity, so that people can enjoy dancing at fairs, campsites, things of that sort, where they can go out and be part of an evening because they have a working knowledge of the very basics. They're moving to music. One of the personal notes here, a few years back, I had a young man, I was doing a school program that evening, but a fellow came up to me and he says, Mister, I want to tell you I'm 83 years old and I've been dancing for the last 15 minutes with a 5-year-old young lady. What other type of recreation would cover or reach that distance? And of course I took his hand immediately and I said, will you please come with me to the altar? I'd like for you to at least tell the rest of the congregation about it, as long as you're going to make confessions like that. Is there an opportunity for training? Yes, there will be more. I've run a program at Akron University for the last 5 or 6 years, a 2-week, 4-hour credit course for those who'd like to become involved with this particular type of activity. I would like to allude for just a moment before I sit down to 2 young men that gave a callers' college a few years back and talk about misinformation. 2 statements they had made the morning that we started the callers' college. One of them said that 98% of the people that are square dancing in America are square dancing at the mainstream level. And secondly, that if you get to be pretty good with this calling business, you can make $125,000 a year. 2 very positive statements. I had lunch with them and I said 98% of the people in this country that are square dancing have never heard of any levels at all. They are dancing in Grange halls, in YMCAs, in churches, etc., at a recreation level. And I said I could name the number of callers that are making $125,000 a year, and those fellows are calling 21 dances a week. And I don't want to be the richest man in the cemetery. So I guess I'd like to also back Ken up on one other point, and that's the exposure to all forms of American dance. That in this program, and it certainly is there are individual types of dances. There are solos, there are squares, there are contras, there are trios, there are simple rounds and mixers. And it's my hope that in the pursuit of this thing, why people will be exposed to all forms of very basic dance. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Don't forget, tomorrow morning at 9, whatever room it is we're in, we're going to show you some of these forms so that when we say a solo or we say a trio or something like that, you'll know what it is we're referring to. We are particularly fortunate because we are standing at this particular point in time where we can look back not a year, but many years and see dance as it is up to the present time and select from all that has happened in the past those things that will fit into this program. And there's wide variety. It's just great. The main thing, this is not going back. We're selecting. We are not going back in time. We're not going to roll the clock back, because what we're doing is today's dancing. The next person to address the microphone here, I've watched him over many, many years do some wondrous things with dance. I've watched him do Kentucky running sets. I've watched him to put together a demonstration at the National Convention in Anaheim. I know that his heart is in dance, and his history goes for many years, and he's got the fun in his heart. Stu Shacklette.
Thank you, Bob. I got the same frog Bob had, I guess. Was it catching? In thinking about what we're attempting to do or what we have here, there's some things that have come to my mind that I want to sort of mention to you. I guess I'm fortunate in that I grew up with dancing, and as the new material came out, I learned it along the line. So there's no tremendous challenge for me now to go out and call whatever I want to call. But for those callers that have just gotten in this thing within the last, say, 15 years, it's going to be a real challenge to you, because many of us who have learned to dance and have learned square through as one of the mainstreams that we do on every tip that we do, we get up and do a square through, to unplug that out of your thinking process and think no square through. It's difficult for a caller to get up and call to a group where there's a limited number of basics. We have in our area what we call a New Dancers Roundup, and we have about 3 or 4 of these through the year. And as the classes start, after the first 6 weeks of classes, we'll put out a number of basics that should have been covered in this period of time. And we limit the calls that the caller can use at this festival or get together to those amount of calls. And I'm amazed at how many guys can't get up and call to those limited basics. They can't get up without doing a square through. They can't get up without doing a swing through or spin the top or whatever. But it's there, and it's just a matter of unplugging that and taking it away from you, erasing your memory or whatever. But it's just unlimited to the possibilities that these basics that we've picked out here that will give us and allow us to make the variety that we're looking for to keep the people happy, keep them having fun. And we feel that's the name of the game. Of course, a number of years ago when we first started calling, when I first started calling, we didn't have classes to teach the dancers how to dance. We'd have a caller, and he'd come in, and he'd bring a square with him. And he'd sit them down right in the front here and said, okay, now everybody watch this square. Okay, chase a rabbit, chase a squirrel, chase a pretty girl. That's it. Now, do you see how to do that? Okay, we'll all do that. Start playing band. The band would play, and he would call it, and everybody would try to imitate what they saw happening out here. There was no teaching of lessons. After that came along, I think we had about 16 basics that were identified, and we worked on a program of 16 basics. And then it started into, at that time with 16 basics, we were doing what we call memorized sequence. You know, and a number of callers would just write down a number of basics that put into a pattern, and they'd give it a name. And in doing some research here, Bob asked me to do something for tomorrow's program. Some of the basics here with a little more challenge to it than just pass through a round 2 type of thing. And in researching, I ran across one that was written by Bob Van Antwerp. And then, of course, one that was written by Bob Osgood. And these things are dances that have little sequences to them, and a memorized sequence that we used to do. And they're simple, but they're easy, and they use the basics in a different configuration to make it interesting type of dance. So the memorized sequence is something that was popular back then. Most of you, I'm sure, are doing sight calling now, or at least memorize ins and outs. But if you're aware of zeros and equivalents, and you use this with the limited basics we got here, it's unlimited to what you can do with these limited basics in giving and providing variety for the people. Bob mentioned the quick teach. I feel this is very essential to this program. In serving as chairman of the Traditional Dance Committee for a number of years, we had done a lot of research, and we found that people were having difficulty blocking off enough time to go through those lessons, regardless of whether it was 40 weeks or 48 weeks or 52 weeks or whatever you were having. And this is one of the reasons why we feel this program is going to be beneficial to us, because the people can almost come in off the street tonight and dance at least something that we're doing that doesn't take a long teaching process, something that can be done rather quickly with the quick teach that Bob has made reference to. The variety is there, not only in the square, but also in the trio dances. How many of you use trio dances? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, okay. The quadrilles, how many of you use quadrilles? You know what they used to do when they danced quadrilles? They didn't give the quadrilles names, they gave them numbers. Quadrille number 1, quadrille number 2. And when they build the program, they would publish, first tip, we're going to do quadrille number 3. Well, the people knew what quadrille number 3 was, and that's what they would do. They'd go out and dance quadrille number 3. The caller would get up and he would cue it, and they would dance. So, but with a limited number of basics, it was just a matter of which figure did what in the quadrille as to the numbers that they used. So a tremendous variety: solo dances, squares, quadrilles, trios, and of course the Kentucky running set. Now this is not a dance for someone who has a heart problem, but it is a fun dance to do, and there are not very many people still teaching the Kentucky running set today. And it was a dance that was found by Sharp when he was researching in the United States. He found it in the mountainous areas of Kentucky, and he put it in a little book and called it the Kentucky running set, because the people used to say, "Let's go run a set," and he didn't understand what they were talking about. And what the results was this little dance that he saw them do. So he named it Kentucky running set. But it can be traced that many of those figures came from the things that Playford did in a lot of the dances that he published. So there's ties back that far to the early 1600s that are still there. So some of the basics never die. They're still usable. It's amazing that I feel we really haven't even scratched the surface in recognizing, as Bob alluded to a moment ago, those people out there who are not members of this organization, who are not members of the Country Dance Society. They just know how to run a program and how to have fun and how to get people to come. And at one time, the Traditional Dance Committee attempted to put together a list of these dances that were in the areas that people were familiar with, so that we could give you an opportunity to go visit these people and find out what they're doing. And one of the ways of learning some of this material that we're talking about that gives you the variety is to go and dance it, go and visit, and find out what the other people are doing. There are unlimited callers out there who have never heard of CALLERLAB. There are unlimited number out there who are not necessarily members of the Country Dance Society. But all of these are out there, and they're available to you. All you have to do is go. I guess I'm very fortunate in that I've had an opportunity to work in other areas other than square. I've worked with the folk dancers for a number of years, and I'm the director of a folk dance camp. And on our staff, we have international folk, we have square, we have contra, we have round, we have quadrilles. So we give a variety of types of dancing that really could be beneficial to you to broaden your knowledge and to give you some additional ammunition to work in the area of this dance program that we're talking about here. It provides you with some easy mixers, some trio dances, some quadrilles that the square dance publications don't use. But it's just a world of information and material out there if you just do a little research and go out and find them. It's, I don't know, I'm so enthused about the program. How long have I been talking? Too long? Okay, I saw you looking at your watch. I thought maybe I was... oh. But I am excited about this, and I feel that, you know, if you get into it, I'm sure that each of you would be excited about it, too, because there's nothing more pleasing to me than to go to a group. I work with a number of folk dance groups. To go to a group that have never square danced before. Now, they've done folk dancing, they've done contra dancing, but they've never square danced before. And, you know, within an hour or two, these people are just up in the clouds. They're just having a wonderful time. And we're doing nothing more than what we have on this basic list here, the limited number of basics. And we dance those. We use some modern music, some good music, and the people love it. And they think I'm just, they think I walk on water or something. But it's just, you know, it's just something that I'm repeating that I've heard somebody else do. I haven't invented this. This is just something that I heard somebody else do. But it is a tremendous challenge to each and every one of you. I know a number of you are callers who learned, and the things that you learned were probably built off of the more difficult figures, the square throughs, the swing throughs, the spin the tops, that type of thing, and you think that there isn't anything out there but that. But there is. There's a lot out there, and I'm sure that you'd enjoy it if you just give it a try. Just get out there and get your feet wet. Thank you, Bob. Thank you,
Out of curiosity, do any of you fellas or gals call in a hall that would hold, say, 15 squares or more? Do any of you call? Okay, great. Now, how many of you that raised your hand have an average of 6 squares or fewer in that same hall? Okay, what I'm getting at is the potential is there. You've got the space you're using a night. Why not think in terms, as you're listening to these different people, of what could be done with a program that would deal with the 80% of the people we hear we're losing in square dancing, with a program that would fill that hall and have people waiting outside to get in. The first time I ever met our next speaker was down in Long Beach, California. He worked for the Parks and Recreation Department down there at that time, and they had a large hall, but it was packed. I don't know, there were 30 or 35 or 40 squares, and people were waiting week after week to get into his classes. The classes didn't last a great number of weeks because there wasn't that much to teach. But Bob Van Antwerp was one of the leaders in the area, and he could relate, being a contemporary caller, to what happened then and what can happen now. Bob Van Antwerp.
Thank you, Bob. Sitting next to Bob Howell with our colored sweaters, I feel like a couple of old bent tulips. I feel kind of like a fifth wheel to a certain extent with all these gentlemen up here, because my program for the last many years has been Mainstream and Plus, and even to the advanced group. I feel like I'm coming to full circle. I have been there, up here, around, and coming back to a certain degree. It is true, my start was in Long Beach as a recreation center director for the city of Long Beach. My first exposure after being a coach in Oklahoma into the square dancing activity as a recreation center director, one night I had a bingo party. 12 people showed up, but they didn't really want to play bingo. They just wanted to talk. So I said, let's try something. So in the back of the recreation center hall, there was an old record by Ed Durlacher, Chase the Rabbit, Chase the Squirrel. We took 2 hours and 20 minutes figuring out how to do that for those 12 people. The next week I said, come back, we'll try it again. Next week we had about 60 people. On that one we did dive for the oyster, dive for the clam, dive for the eel. We worked another 2 hours. The next week, we had close to 100 and some people. The interest was there. You have a question?
What year was that, Bob?
Too long to remember. 1947.
You haven't figured it out?
I haven't figured it out yet. Anyway, the people were there, they were wanting a recreation outlet. And we had to give them something. Well, I knew nothing about square dancing at that time, so I hired a caller to come in who was from Oklahoma. We gave him $5 a night for 3 hours of instruction. We finally grew, so one night he turned up laryngitis. I'd been watching what he was doing. I had his cards. I had his records. And I had so much fun that night teaching, I never did have him come back. And I had to buy my own equipment, so that's where I started. In 47, I think why Bob asked me, because I seem like I've come the complete circle. It is true that we were giving 8 weeks of lessons at 50 cents a person. And we were, Bob says, 35 or 40. Our largest class was 50 squares. They'd come on at 7 o'clock at night and go until 9 o'clock. We would run them home, and a new group would come on from 9 o'clock until 11. We were servicing about 100 squares in one night, but people didn't realize. They thought I was making a bunch of money. All I was doing was taking the afternoon off from my regular job so I'd come out and teach. I wasn't making anything off of it. But our classes grew so heavily, they had to move to larger halls. The round dance program, well, the rounds at that time, Waltz for the Bells and Varsouvienne, etc., Boston Two-Step, and these were being taught by Roberta, my wife, and myself, and our group became so large, wanting more rounds, that we finally hired Carolyn and Frank Hamilton to come into Long Beach, and it was not unusual to see Frank and Carolyn have approximately 3 circles around this gymnasium hall. So we grew rapidly. Now, being under the auspices of the City Recreation Department, every graduation class, we would list and give every club in the area a copy of this list of the dancers that we had graduated in this 8 weeks class. And each of them had the opportunity to go to that particular club one free night without any charge. This is the way we spread the word. When I retired from Long Beach in 77 as Director of Recreation, we had 3 classes going on. And today, I don't know what it is. Bob Johnson probably can tell me more than I can, but I don't know that. I made some notes here, which is a little bit different than what the gentlemen here have presented. And I've kind of titled, As I See It, some of the greatest required needs in the success of a community dance program. The assessment of the community itself, that the need is there and the support has been established through investigative measures. Some communities are overexposed to the dance groups of many kinds, and many very small groups are operating and struggling due to overextension in that particular area. Seemingly, many small groups are in session instead of larger groups as in the past, and this has to be taken into consideration as to the real need for a community dance program. The need may be there, but by all means should be explored first, instead of diving into an already saturated situation. But I doubt that a community dance program is going in your... How many have a community dance program going, which we call a community? Okay, thank you. A dedicated effort to sell the community on a program of this nature must be done in a professional manner. Excuse me, Bob, you gave me your frog. Where it will not be ascertained as just another recreational outlet that maybe has previously failed. The leader of this activity must be very well prepared to be able to sell a community dance program and not just half-heartedly approach it without intense preparation and appear that he or she, without question, knows the teaching process. This has been repeatedly a well-established and proven problem that has resulted in failures on many callers' part. The need is ever so great that the leader must enjoy being and dealing with people. You've got to love people. He or she, their personality must be one that can shrug off criticism, but learn from it, control the fervor that can become an issue when disappointments occur naturally when dealing with teaching situations. The selection of good, not fair, but good, well-recorded music that has dancer appeal is ever so important and is well received by the dancers. Dull, uninteresting music seemingly makes the dancers feel the same way in their response. Naturally, I recommend the caller teacher must make every effort to keep changing his or her music on a regular basis. Selection of mixers with easily learned steps and good music are a must as I see it. In the overall community dance program, too many callers or teachers shy away from mixers and rounds because they're not qualified to teach them. And inadvertently, the dancers suffer from the lack of exposure to this important element. This is a void on the teacher's part and should be given priority to implement in the program. The personality of the class has to be taken into consideration on how fast or how slow the teaching process should take place. The involvement of knowing through capable dancers, to me, is an important item in the show and teach process. Don't overteach to where it becomes a boredom situation, and you should know when you to stop. The partner of the teacher and the caller should be ever so important in this evaluation. Don't forget, this relationship is important for dancers to view as a positive step in the success of the program. Evaluate the speed which you teach and see if it is being retained or just half-heartedly glossed over. Callers can be lazy, and we have a lot of lazy callers, in fact. The need to stress enjoyment, sociability, and accomplishment is even so great in a program like the community dance program, and don't forget it. When your dancers are there early and on time and eager to participate, you're certainly doing something right. I maintain that along with mixers, simple rounds should be included, and I challenge the caller teachers to prepare themselves to easily teach 1 or 2 or 3 rounds during the class period. This is an integral part, in my estimation, of the community dance program. Don't cheat your dancers out of this experience. Here is where the partner is ever so important and should be utilized as often as possible and needed to continue for the successful operation of this type of program. Involve your dancers in special programs, but not to the extent of overburdening them where it becomes a chore. Special dances are enjoyable, if not overdone, and well prepared. Make your teaching sessions enjoyable to both you and the students, and don't forget to let them expel their enjoyment. On some singing calls, let them hoop it up. Let them have a good time. We must start asking ourselves some very important questions, and I have listed a few for an example. How should the advertising for a program of this nature be developed in an unusual way that may be exciting when seen or heard of by the new potential recruit? As an instructor, have I prepared myself well, or do I see it as an opportunity to satisfy a desire of mine to be before the public and try to obtain some additional revenue? My first job was for $5, and I'd have paid anybody if I could have let me have the chance. Does my ego need nourishing? So I will use this as my avenue to feed it through this program. If so, don't start. Is the facility adequate, reasonable in price, and will my public address equipment adequately serve as well as the students? Have I given thought to my teaching attributes, and are they of good or just minimal in my knowledge of the teaching process? Am I well informed of all the basic dance movements, and will I be able to handle all situations and questions that will be asked of me? Can I, as a color teacher, afford the time, effort, and finances to rededicate myself and my partner to this activity? Should my partner and myself go out with them for refreshments after the dancer class? I say yes, but don't overextend your talents. I feel personally the students will be testing your capability. As a teacher caller, the first 2 nights of a new class situation, and your personality has to come across as being capable, responsive, and well prepared. Learn to write your own dance sequences for mixers and rounds to exciting music, and you'll learn while you develop your own teaching process and style. Your capability will actually improve through this natural involvement. I personally cannot overlook the great need for the color teacher to always be clean and presentable in his or her dress. Western wear, I still feel, is part of the heritage of our square dance programs, and we are gradually letting it slip, which is really a great disappointment to me. Too many of our color teachers are sloppy in their dress, and it spills over into the dress of their dancers. Why do we continue to allow this when it is so easy to be clean and look nice? The utilizing, I think this is important, the utilizing of traditional dance movements maybe can be overdone or overtaught, just because you may feel they are classified and should be used. I maintain caution should be exercised to not push them just because you feel they should continue to be used because they are listed as traditional. They may have passed their time as being relevant to the activity. And I'm going to close by saying that I prefer to exhibit a chart on a regular basis of the dance movements that we've been taught, and what will be forthcoming so progress of the dancers can be openly viewed. The visual progress chart, I feel, adds to the dancer-teacher relationship. I urge all caller teachers to exemplify your enjoyment of what you're doing on the floor as well as off the floor as it becomes contagious. Remember, your boredom attitude is noticeable to your students. And last but not least, if you're prepared, excited about your involvement in the community dance program, have researched all aspects of what you're teaching, have a desire to really serve a need in the community, then don't delay. Go out and do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Van. We started a little bit late, and I think we'll go until 5. Is that going to give you time to get dressed and tidied up? Okay. Somebody was saying at lunch today that we were talking about this program, and they said, you know, in teaching beginners, which is the happiest thing, the man said, that he did, he said for the first, 8 lessons, 6 lessons, 7, or whatever it is, the people are smiling and having a good time. And that they don't really get into the serious expressions and some of this groaning deal until they've gone a little bit further and get a little bit deeper into more basics. And the guy likened it to this program. These people will always be fresh because they will only be doing those things that involve a lot of fun. When we were doing some of the research on this thing, I ran across one of the notebooks 2 calls, and I assure you this is not the type of call you got. But Bob was talking about die for the oyster. Have any of you ever called this? Duck in the hole with an old barrel, roll, make a hoop with a backward loop, roll the barrel down the hill, duck right out, swing the opposite Jill. Or roll the barrel, tap the keg, save the oyster, break the egg, open the book and write the check, turn inside out, go on to the next. Well, forget those. I wanted to say something about music. Sometimes we associate simple dances with old music because that's what we use. Solomon Levi, Life on the Ocean Wave, and some of those deals. Well, Ken made a real mark for himself for quite a few years with us by taking current good music and writing simple dances, taking a lot of the old easy dances and putting them together. And his claim is that anybody can do that. Just if you feel that you need music for a dance routine you used to do, take good music that will make the feet move and try this. Ken, say something about utilizing music, and then anything else you'd like to add while you're at it.
Thanks, Bob. It's so easy to take the existing material, and there's nothing sacred out there. Just because it's been published in a magazine or published by the record producer, and he says this is the routine that he puts out with the record, doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you've got to use in it. And I think so many of us, when we listen to a record and listen to a really good piece of music, forget that we can take any other routine and put it to that music very easily and make a good dance out of it. So I would encourage you to adapt so many of these dances that come out, simplify them, and make them much easier. I was just talking a little bit earlier this morning with Greg Anderson, and we were talking about Amos Moses, which has been around for years and years and years as a dance, and to simplify that, and perhaps if we have a chance, we'll show you in the morning. But you can very easily adapt that and make that much easier by just making a walk forward 3 instead of that little kind of a grapevine that goes in it. So we encourage you to take, whether it be a singing call or a line dance or Teton Mountain Stomp. You'll see in the material that we've handed here, Bob. I think we stole that from Bob somewhere, and he got it from somewhere else. But taking and modifying and simplifying the Teton Mountain Stomp, and the Ruby Baby that you'll see in there has been modified and simplified, and so I would say encourage you to do that a great deal. The material that you see in front of you there is just a beginning, and we want to emphasize that we've kind of tried to do as careful screening as we can in that material to make it a start. It by no means is all of the material that's out there. When we started doing some digging and getting this together, there is a tremendous amount of material. I've got a file here with me that's probably about 1.5 inches thick of material that's come in, and that's just unlimited amount of material that you can use to put this program together. And nearly all of the dances that you see in this material handout that we've given you has record numbers with it, and the instructions come right with the sheets. But when you see the term suggested music in that material there beside the record, what that says is that the instructions do not come with a record, and that you're going to have to use the dances that are in this handout in this material. And so this is especially true with the solo dances. You'll see the solo dances are done with a lot of pop music, and sometimes when you get it from a particular record dealer, they will have this particular dance in it. They may not, so a word of caution there. But I really wanted to emphasize again what Stu said, that we have only begun to scratch the surface in terms of material. And if you're lacking for material, it's just because you're not looking for it and are adapting it and making it fit to your dances here. The key to this program that we've put together, I think, really is variety. And we would like to say that in terms of types of dances, formation, and music, there's a tremendous amount that you can do in terms of variety. And it doesn't mean that you need to use more basics. You'll see before you the squares. We've got pattern squares in there, pattern squares, and what we're defining as pattern squares are those that are memorized, kind of a routine, and that are more a little bit in traditional nature. Singing calls, quadrilles, mixers, couple dances, contras, solos, trios, all of this makes up this program out here. And if you're going to limit yourself to doing just the patter calls only, and if you're going to limit yourself to doing just the singing calls, then you're missing the whole idea of the program. So we would encourage you to use all of the different formations. And only if you use the whole program are you going to benefit. And so don't restrict yourself just to the singing calls and the patter calls. And so I wanted to say just quickly, too, that a number of the people here, if you're interested in the material that we put out on that paper, a number of the record producer, the distributors and so forth, have a number of these records available. I know that Bill Heyman has some downstairs and is getting together a program. Ralph Trout and others have a lot of those records available. So if you're interested in those, they have them available. And so I want to say just quickly, too, in terms of resources, I want to point you towards some directions here. There's a tremendous amount out there in addition to what we've already done here. And one of them I'd like to point you towards most certainly is the Lloyd Shaw Foundation. Has a tremendous amount of material that's available, and they have a catalog that's available, and a great deal of material within that. Blue Star is beginning to put out a bunch of material within the community dance program, and you'll find on the EZ label that Johnny Wyckoff and Norm Merbach are putting out quite a bit. Hugh Macy has just put out a new little catalog, and it's yellow in nature, and I have several, and you can write to him. He, in turn, is putting out new dances right within the community dance program. We have a great deal of support coming in from all over people and from the record producers who are saying, yes, we think that's a good program, and here are some records that are being put out. So Bob Ruff, with his Wagon Wheel label, has taken the old wagon wheel and he's republishing those in, again, right within this whole community dance program. Of course, he has McGregor and Windsor and the Sets in Order label with the LP 6001s and so forth. And those are all available. Jack Murthaugh with his Square Dance Time is putting out a number of records just for this program. I would point you towards Gene Trimmer's Singing Through Mainstream. His book has probably about 30 or 40 different singing calls that are adaptable right to this particular program. So that's a good resource too. Of course, Dick Ledger and Kimbo. And so all of these different groups are putting out material that's available to you, and I would encourage you to use that and look at all of those. So I think beyond that, I'm going to turn it back to Bob. And
you done good. Well, we'll wrap this up in just a minute. We'll let Bob and Stu and Van each have a last go at you. And one little thing I've just discovered here, you probably noticed it a long time ago, but tomorrow morning the other two programs will be on at the same time we're on. We're down at Poydras AB, which is down at about as low as you can get, down there on the main floor. But the other two are over in the dome. They're going to have to walk through the muck and the mire and the rain and all that. So do come to Poydras AB, and you'll watch some dancing demonstrations that you'll want to tell the kids about when you get home. Bob, your last crack at a microphone.
A young man from Pittsburgh once said to me, when they stop smiling, don't go any further. And I think it fits so appropriately in this program. Watch your dancers, and when they do stop smiling, stop doing what you're doing and digress just a little bit. The other thing I think is so humorous, and I want to share it with you, I picked up the syllabus from Akron University this last summer, and the young lady that wrote it was not a dancer, had never danced a dance before, and I should have probably shown her the sheet, but she just took it from the tape. And folks, in the last Akron University bulletin that came out, the dance is now spelled A-N-U-S, Anus Moses. Scout honor. I can't believe it, but that's the way it appeared. Remember, this is a recreational approach completely. And I certainly would like to thank Ken Kernen for all of the work that has gone on before to get this thing. He was given a responsibility this last year, and has really fulfilled the responsibility that was given to him, and with a backup like Bob Osgood, they've made it all possible. So I'd like to certainly commend the two of them. Thank you.
Ken thanks you, and I thank you. Stu, your last crack at the mic.
One parting thought, when I was going to college and my training was in health, physical education, recreation, and they gave us a cardinal rule that you never violate. And I think it's very appropriate for what we're talking about here, and that is always leave them wanting more.
That's great. Thanks, Stu. And Van Bob Antwerp.
I have nothing more to offer because I think I spoke the longest, except to tell you that when Bob asked me to do a pattern call for tomorrow morning, I really had to work. So stay within the 24 basics. For those of you who call more than this can think of a different kind of get-outs, you don't have a lot of get-outs. You got to work it out, you know. So it was very difficult, but we'll have something for you. Also, a few years back, we did put out an album by Bomar Records. There's two albums. One is called Mixers, and they're simple dances, and one is called Singing Squares. They're still on the market, and they've changed their address into Chicago, and they used to be in Los Angeles. So don't ask me for the address. I was thought I'd tell you they're out there. Thank you for letting me participate with you.
Thank you, Bob. There are a few more of these up here, and believe me, they've got a wealth of research, and they're going to be a good start for you in your library on working this program. I just happen to have some nomination forms that I'm trying to get filled out for some poor individuals. If any of you can still sign your name and would like to, I'll put them up on the chair. I want to again thank Ken and Stu.